Hello, love. So I want you to imagine if in nature, if you care about nature at all, which I hope you do, the instinct between a lioness and her cubs was broken. I want you to imagine if all of a sudden that mother started following around her cubs rather than the instinct where they all know that the mammal speaks 100% of the time and is communicating, and they follow the mother who teaches them how to live in the world, how to hunt, where the edges of her territory are, and where the edges of their collective system territory are. Can you imagine if a lioness had the instinct broken in her and she just followed her wandering cub into another lion's territory? That wouldn't happen because they wouldn't exist as a species. And human consciousness can get a little carried away with us because we live in mammals' bodies. That energy is real for us. As a mother, when I say we're leaving, I have 4 kids. I'm not a perfect mother, but in this way, I'm pretty on par. When I say we're leaving, and I mean it, I expect that when I take steps, my ducklings are going to follow. And for 21 years, that has been the case. But I see mothers, and I had a conversation with somebody the other day who said this other mother was too nice. And that's why her kids are out of control and don't have any respect for adults. That's not nice. That's actually very unkind and sets your kids up for danger in the future, because eventually they're either going to find somebody who's that nice, that fits the program, like the mother, and they're going to be, I can flip out and just do whatever the hell I want and I can get away with it because all I have to do is flip out. Or they'll go to jail because it won't work with that too nice person that they picked or assumed would be too nice, just like all the people that they've run over in their whole lives, right? So I don't consider too nice moms very nice. I understand that their consciousness has gotten in the way of their mammal experience. I get it. Like, I want to be that too. And as somebody trained in child-led and things like that, I deeply understand the need for children to lead their own individuation, their own ways in the world, but they cannot lead the system. That becomes very dangerous because any parent who's too nice and they let their kid lead the system will eventually implode on said child, because you can't sustain allowing a child who doesn't have the resources to direct the movement of the system. And in animal systems, when an animal, the energy is obvious. That's too much, don't do that. They emit an obvious awareness that is speaking, and it is heard from the cubs and, also from the parent and from everybody, right? There's always a language. And that's kind of what I hear, right? There's always a language being spoken behind the language. And that language is dictating far more of what's going on than anything else. So the too nice mom, my body doesn't have a very good response to the language that's coming off of that. So as a neurodivergent child, I realized I was difficult. As a parent of neurodivergent children, I realized very much that if my meltdowns or my desires or my if I'm, I wasn't actually like this, I wasn't allowed to be like this, but I see other parents who allow their children's meltdowns to dictate their next move. And when that happens, you might think you're being nice, but really it's not kind at all. Because as a neurodivergent person myself, as a child, I already felt very out of control. When I wasn't parented, or I shouldn't even say parented, I don't want to use that word in this context. When I wasn't contained, I was then made to be blamed for the out of control that ensued because I was out of control, which now it was double fold because now somebody else was out of control because I was out of control. And nobody was in control except me, weirdly, who was made to believe I was in control. And then I did this On a Day at Judith workshop years later. And I said, I was in control of my family. And she was like, no, you are manipulated as a child to believe that you were in control of your family. And I was like, wait, what? Huh? if you can really dig into what that means, it's like very interesting. I'm not going to go there right now. That's not what this is about. But so the mother who is too nice or too passive or too theoretically, like, I just don't want to deal with it. Eventually, in the animal kingdom, the energy would speak first, and there wouldn't have to be the physicality necessarily. But in the animal kingdom also, you realize that animals know when they're going to fight based on what they're communicating beyond language, right? And they know when they're going to approach each other gently. That is something that is known in the kingdom. This is also true for people. And if we parent our kids with the absence of this truth, they are going to be in trouble as human beings, because they will not be based in the firmness of reality of what relationships are, what their physical bodies are, where we are in physical space. And the parent who constantly allows the child to direct, but then resents that they didn't end up where they wanted to go, and also that the kid's still kind of like unhappy because of it, that parent will eventually have to stop using their energy to speak, and they will eventually, if you put it in a lioness context, swat the child, right? Or have a meltdown, and then the kid's gonna be like, wait, I was melting down, now you're melting down. So that to the kid is the swat, right? Like, now all of a sudden they're being slapped with reality when they were just like bugging out, not even in reality, right? As parents, we have to direct them because we love them. We have to contain them and expect that and here's the other thing, I can see that consciousness is a problem in this way because they're not clear, right? They want to be nice. They want the kids to get what they want. We all want our kids to get what we want if we're safe and we love them, right? But if you're safe, you also have to understand that in reality, to disconnect that instinct that the child follows the parent, we are setting them up for failure. They won't have a parent. They won't have a guide. And I hate to say this because, like, yes, I want to feel very friendly with my children. I do feel very friendly with them. You only get one parent. You get a million friends, bro. You get one mother and one father, and maybe, whatever. You can have step parents or whatever. But on an animalistic instinct level, you get one. So for me to be like, I want to be my kids' friends. Like, yes, I want to have great experiences with them, but I'm always going to be their mother. Like, that, if that instinct is broken, that is, they won't have one. They won't have somebody to come to where they're like, hey, like, no, that's my mom. Like, my mom, like, showed me how to hunt. My mom showed me where the edges of our territory were. My mom showed me where my physical body is, right? So, and that doesn't always look, they're going to experience reality, right? Sometimes it's going to feel cold. Sometimes it's going to feel warm. And that is what the awareness of those things is what sets us up to trust our own instincts, right? Does it feel cold? Does it feel warm? When it feels cold, should I back away? What's going on here? But the mother, when attunement is intact, the mother's attunement to the environment she's already attuned to is what directs the attunement of the cub, so to speak. Right? But if the mother is not attuned to her reality, she's expecting her child to dictate how the environment is attuning both of them. And if you think about that in lion territory, again, like if a cub's just like, hey, well, let me go do what I want and wander off, and they're wandering off, and there's a male lion who's going to kill them. If the mother, and obviously it's not that dangerous, right? Like, but it does feel dangerous to me when I see this, because I could see that instinct is not intact, and I can see that the children feel very out of control, right? So, and then there's also the opposite end of that. Parents are like, my kid doesn't do anything wrong, and like, or parents who like super discipline their kids, right? And this is why there is a fine line. Like, this is one of the things I agree with in my field. Like, being an authoritative parent is necessary, right? But so I did this. I had this thought that I wanted to do this video, and then I accidentally looked up something, and because I was trying to figure out what title I wanted to use for this or whatever. And one of the things that came up, and it was beautiful. I love it. I want you to hear this, right? Because this even furthers, but in a softer, gentler way, what I'm trying to have you hear here. So mammals, as parents, teach us presence over perfection. Mammal mothers are fully present with their young, nursing, grooming, responding to needs, but they aren't performing or overextending. Do you know how much it takes, how much overextension is necessary to follow your kid on all of their whims just because you want them to be happy? But that particular kid won't be happy if you follow them everywhere. I promise. And this is like, obviously, like, set time in your day. Hey, be child-led for an hour. Right now, you got all my time and attention. But if that kid is dictating the whole world, that kid is going to feel in danger. And you will not be a safe parent. I hate to say it that way, but it's true, because I know a lot of people really want to be nice and they want, like, their intention is to make their kid feel safe. But that very thing will make their kid feel unsafe. So, and it kind of is performative, right? You want the kid to love you. You want the kid to like you. Like, okay, but there's also reality. Like, that has to keep moving. There's places to be, like, okay, there's that. So, oh, interesting. It says, they teach that attunement matters more than doing everything right. That's where I feel on par with this, like what I'm trying to convey here. Rest is sacred. Mammals rest often. They don't sacrifice their well-being to the point of depletion. This teaches us that rest is part of nurturing, not something to feel guilty about. And if you want to, like, come on here and be like, we're not mammals. Okay, dude, you're in a three-dimensional reality with consciousness. That's the only thing that is different than mammals here. Obviously, they have consciousness, but they don't have awareness of it. So, nurturing touch matters. Physical closeness, cuddling, nursing, grooming builds safety and attachment. Mammals remind us of the power of touch in regulating nervous systems and deepening bonds. I feel so sad about when I had my first child. I was 19 years old and I lived in a family. I was never hugged. I was never touched unless I was being slapped. I was never told I love you. And I used to call him Love Bug. And I would hear, you sound like a whore. Don't call him that. If I would hold him and be like, put that child down. He's just spoiled, blah, blah, blah. He did not get a lot of physical touch. And it is very obvious to me, like, even now, he's not super aware of his physical body in space. And he's not necessarily as attuned as I, over the years have tried to make up for that lack, and knowing how important that was. He was also bottle fed, even though I woke up, I was breastfed for him for over a year, but I would pump because I was told I wasn't a fucking cow, right? So I was not supported in any way with any of the ways that my instinct was to parent. And I had to do what the system needed, which was look and be the way that they were. And I can see the effects of that. And they are unwanted for my nervous system, I'll say that. Boundaries are love. Even the most devoted mammal mothers create space for their young to grow, encouraging independence and offering gentle but firm boundaries. This teaches us that saying no is not rejection, but a form of care. That sentence right there. If a child thinks every time that they melt down or every time that they're just screaming. I saw a kid screaming at his mom the other day. She gave him what he wanted. And I'm like, oh my God. Your no means you care enough not only about them, but about you. And they have to know that you are in the lioness kingdom. That position is worthy of respect. And they know, oh, she cares about herself. She cares about us. But she's letting us know how to navigate this world, right? It is a form of care for that lion to lead, period. Lioness to lead. So instinct is wisdom. Mammals rely on instinct rather than manuals or comparison. They remind us that we hold ancient cellular wisdom about how to mother when we slow down and listen. It's so funny that I'm reading this right now after having this conversation with my son this morning, who was like, I'm not the smartest kid in my class. I'm like, that's totally fine, dude. You're smart in other ways, right? But that comparison, as a child, every single thing, I knew myself only by comparison. You're not as smart as this person, like what this person does. Why can't you be like this kid? Your sisters are going to be jealous. Like I didn't know myself other than pitting myself against somebody else, and I didn't care to do that. Like, I'm more aligned to, like, hey, I trust my own instincts. Like, I don't give a shit what that person is or is doing. Like, I'm just me. I'm here. Like, I can't help that I'm me and I'm here, right? So that instinct, I feel sad when I see it broken. And mothers who are, you know, trying to be so nice because their consciousness is like, well, I want to love my child. Love in reality is firm. It is. Protection without control. Mammal mothers are fiercely protective, but they don't micromanage. They hold space, intervene when necessary, and trust their young's process. Healing through connection. The mammalian nervous system is wired for co-regulation. Our presence, voice, and touch can heal, not just raise a child. This speaks to the power of connection as medicine. What I'm really saying is when that mammalian attunement instinct is absent, we are asking our children to co-regulate with dysregulation. And that's going to set them up for a life that's probably going to be kind of unkind to them as much as you're trying to be kind. Like in that way, maybe our niceties put them more in danger than they do in safety. So obviously there's a middle ground here, right? Like but that's the thing I want you to hear. A mother who operates based on instinct won't have to hit her kid. She won't have to scream and shout and raise her voice because she'll be so regulated. Like I can only feel this when I'm like, okay guys, like I see all these mothers negotiating with their kids like, oh my God, 2 more minutes, 5 more minutes. And none of them stick to it. And I'm like, all right guys, it's time to go. I start walking and my ducklings follow, right? Sometimes there'll be a little bit of a fit, but for the most, and that's only when I'm unclear. It's only when they know I don't. And that's the other thing too. When I was a child, I was very empathic and I knew when it was meant and when it wasn't meant. And when it wasn't fully like, this is what we're doing. When there was a waffle in my parents' field, I would be able to exploit that. But that exploitation would get me into trouble because then I would be essentially exploited because all of a sudden I'm being screamed at for not wanting to do the thing, but now we're taking all of the time to like scream about not wanting to do a thing. And now there's this big thing going on. And now I'm doubly out of control. And I'm being blamed for being even, and I'm being blamed for like feeling sad and confused and scared. Instead of the containment of one regulated person going, we're leaving. And it is meant and understood that there's no gaps in the energy of what that means. Children need that. It's not mean, it's not unthoughtful, it's literally necessary. So there's that. I hope it makes sense. Bye.